Welcome back to a family business podcast. We have a interesting topic today. It is going to be why hire a coach and when should you hire a coach?
Should you hire a coach?
And should you hire a coach?
Interesting.
It's a good question. I think it's a struggle I think a lot of people have, especially with just anything in general when you want to hire somebody on. But this particular avenue to go down to improve your business, I think, needs to be looked in at wherever you're at in your business, and we'll kind of roll out where you're at and what to consider.
Yeah, I totally agree. So when I got into the business now almost 25 years ago, I didn't have a coach. I had a couple of mentors, which I thought would be just like having a coach. So we ended up hiring a coach here in the last couple of months, and I wish I would have done it way earlier. And obviously you just hired a coach in the last year, PT, and it's made a huge difference in the way that you run your business, and the results are very evident. So clearly, when you hired your coach, it's helped you out a ton. And that's always the question is, when do you do it?
Right. And I think it's very interesting too. I mean, if you've listened to past episodes or you have some type of idea, I'm halfway through my third year in real estate, and, sometimes, it's like, okay, when do you need to specifically look at something? Where are you looking to evolve your business, take it to the next step? And it was just at the right moment for myself to kind of take a step back and say, hey, I want to take my business from just being I wanted to move from being an entrepreneur to a business owner, right? I think that was the biggest thing, that after I had my first conversation with my coach, Dusty Oglesby down in Texas. But it was more about evolving and wanting to take the next step. So if you feel that your base has been laid within your business and you're ready to take on to the next step, that's part of what the evaluation is, or the start of the process.
Yeah, I definitely think it's interesting I was going to ask you to kind of dive into that a little bit, PT, but for us, I don't really know why. Well, I do know why that we hadn't hired a coach before. Like, I think there's multiple facets to what you should consider. Number one is, I mean, are you at a point in your business where there's something that's a next step that you don't feel like you can get to on your own, right? So then you need someone to coach you to that. Or is it something that you're lacking, right, in your current situation where you're like, okay, well, this person can help me with that specific thing. But for us, I think the problem was in the fact that being a person that had a sales and marketing background, I always had a really hard time with my managers or the people that I worked for if they had never done what I had done. And I get that sometimes coaches, don't necessarily, they maybe are a better coach than they are doing it, but most of them have like done it on some level to have an understanding of it. Right. So I always had a really hard time with that. And I think you and I interviewed, we went through the process of considering a coach multiple times over the last, since I've been with you. There just was never the right fit. I felt like it was a whole lot of fluff and not a lot of substance. And until we connected with our actual coach, Eric, shout out Eric Hatch, it was like Brad and I both just kind of knew. We almost had hired someone right before then that we felt was, a good fit for us. But we both just knew that we aligned with him in several different things in regards to like how we envisioned our business, and faith was a big part of it. That was a bit important for us in a coach, because that's a guiding principle for us. So if someone's going to be coaching us, I want to make sure that's the guiding principle for them. And that's obviously going to be different for some people, but for us, that was important. And number two, we had already done all the things in regards to production and awards and killing that side of things. We were just, and it's funny, PT, because for you, you said, a business, right? We feel like we have a real estate business, but it's like, we know that we want our business to evolve into something else now in this next phase. And we needed to hire someone to help us get there, because there wasn't anybody, and especially being a husband and wife, we also had different visions of what that looked like. So we need someone to, I guess, coach us through
kind
that.
of help us out with that. And we were at the point too where we were kind of caught in the middle of what are we doing, right? I mean, do we want to grow our office? Do we want to grow our real estate business? Where were we at? And I think the clarity, like right away, was I can still grow my real estate business, our real estate business, and also grow our office. And we just needed a roadmap. And I think it kind of hit its head in the last year that, we were just learning how to run an office, learning how to manage people. And it was a different thing, right? I mean, there was a lot going on, and I think we were getting kind of overwhelmed. So we needed that roadmap of, okay, who's somebody that's been there in the past that has sold a lot of real estate and has also run an office.
And is respected in the industry. Yeah. And the other thing is, I think too, is in our previous brokerage, which those of you who've listened to any other pods, I mean, Brad was there for basically 23 years of his career, and that's all I ever knew when I joined him until we made the switch to Real. I think in our previous brokerage too, your mind was kind of closed because you didn't understand things that you didn't understand. You didn't know what could be other than just selling real estate and taking care of clients, which we still do and we love. But when we made the switch to Real, our eyes were just open to all the other facets of the business above and beyond just, people think, okay, you sell real estate or you open a brokerage and, have a brokerage that you run. No, there's so many other things in the world of real estate, but I think traditional brokerages don't really open your eyes to that.
Yeah. And it's not just unique to where we were before. That's a traditional brokerage problem, is that's the way that they've always really done things. And to their credit, they've made some changes, but to what you're saying is to have like this national outreach and just all these new ideas and a new way to do real estate. That's what really, I mean, at the end of the day, that's what turned us on to Real. And we've talked about it a lot. Like, when we researched the company, we really thought, wow, I mean, this is really a neat company. But now that we've been at the company for almost 2 years, which is crazy.
Podcast coming on that soon.
Coming up, is that the company is even more, what's the word that I'm looking for? Better is kind of a weak word for it, but we'll just go ahead and use that.
More outstanding.
Yes, more outstanding than what we even anticipated.
Yeah. So that's where I think, again, for us really getting serious about hiring a coach was because all of a sudden our eyes were opened and we recognized that we had a skill set to do certain things, but we didn't have necessarily the skill set, or at least we're not on the same page with what skill set we needed, you and I personally, to go to the next level that we wanted to go to. And how was that for you, PT? How that, I still remember, and maybe you remember this, driving home from that event in Chicago that we went to, that Sharon was at. And you're like, so I think I'm going to hire a coach. What do you guys think? And I'm like, I think that's a fantastic idea. And I think people will think, oh, well, Brad and Andrea are your coach. Well, sure. I mean, we are, and we're your mentor, and, we'll help you and train you and whatever. But there's still certain things that, and it's an interesting dynamic because you are a nephew. So there's still certain things I feel like that are, I don't know, I don't want to say hard conversations, but maybe we're not the right person for. And I think that's what I told you that day in the car.
Well, exactly. And I think you want to diversify your well, I guess the correct word for this would just be your circle, right? You want to diversify that. You want to have outside opinions. And I think that was the biggest thing for me is, yes, nothing is changing since I'm hiring a coach. I'm not leaving the circle. I'm not, moving on, right?
The circle of life.
But you're like getting outside ideas. And I do think, to your point, PT, is that a lot of the times when you just stay local,
right,
you get a lot of groupthink.
Well, and I think you both hit that right on the head because, I mean, I always refer to our area being in a bubble of a sense, right? We're local, we're hyper local. Everybody is supports small businesses here, and we just kind of coexist in our community here together. And there's not a huge outside look, even with Chicago being 2 hours and 30 minutes away. Things are done the way they're done here. And I think since we have joined Real now, it's kind of opened our perspective, like you mentioned, that we now see how other people run their businesses. It doesn't matter if it's in San Diego, it doesn't matter if it's in a small town in West Virginia. people are running businesses successfully and we're seeing these new ideas. And so I think that all kind of lit the light bulb in our head and said, wow, look at all these different avenues or different ways to run your business and be successful. And it's exciting. So I think that was a huge driving point for me specifically, was where, one, do I align myself with somebody who has been successful doing it, and where do I want to take it? I mean, every time somebody asks me, fourth generation, what's next for you? Well, obviously we want to keep our previous generation legacies intact, the way we run business intact, but we also need to diversify because just over time things change. So for me, it was a necessity to move outside, get more opinions on where is this real estate industry going and how do I improve myself for the next generation to be successful?
Yeah. And it's so cool that that Dusty's your coach. Obviously, I mean, I knew who Dusty was prior to him even coming to Real, just because I don't remember, somehow he showed up on my feed and I was drawn to him. And then we met him at Rise and thought he was a terrific individual, and he's obviously very strong in his faith as well. So that's kind of cool. But so then when you said that's who you were looking at hiring, I'm like, well, that's a perfect fit for a PT, but it wasn't a perfect fit for us. And that doesn't mean, I think that's going back to, I think if you're considering hiring a coach, you really need to discern about that. Like,
do your research.
Yeah. PT's coach is not necessarily the right coach for us, and vice versa, or somebody else in our team or office or friends who has a coach, their coach isn't necessarily, I mean, it's kind of like if you're, I don't golf, you guys do, but like, you can have a pro, but I mean, if it's really your putting the true issue, you're going to want someone who specializes more in putting, right? If it's your driver, you want, and I think that is true for real estate too. Just, you really have to go, okay, what is it that I'm wanting coached on?
Correct you there. That would be the short game.
Oh, geez, Louise. See what I say at the beginning of that? I don't play enough golf. PT and Brad have been playing more golf. That, thanks to our coach as well. He helped Brad decide.
I was mandated that I have to be at Davenport Country Club much more often.
Who would have thought?
I think they're wearing cahoots. I'm pretty sure that was a pre-discussed plan ahead of time. But anyway, no, I just think that if you're considering a coach, that is, I mean, really sit down and do that, pros and cons, lay out your goals, what it is that you want, and then really start interviewing and having those conversations. Yeah. And something will just click for you. I mean, that's how literally it was for us with hiring Eric. It was like, we'd heard, we'd met him, we talked to him, we saw him at that event in Dallas. I respected him. I'd followed him. And then we had a couple conversations with him when we were in Dallas. And then he did a podcast with Dustin Barome. And it was like, for me, I was like, aha. And then you were listening to something else and you're like, I think that Eric would be a good coach for, it was like, it just clicked. It just clicked.
Yeah, knew it. And I remember on our very first call, he said, I just want to lay this out here, or not our very first call. It may have been our second call. So he said, I just want to lay this out here. I'm not going to tell you how pretty you are. You already know that. Yeah. So I'm going to tell you what you need to do to lay the groundwork. And I react very well to that. The way that I was raised was there was a lot of discipline and not in a bad way. But it was one of those where
Papa and
there
Grandma.
wasn't a whole lot of nonsense going on. So it was one of those where when I was growing up, even in sports, I mean, the coaches then were very hard on you. And
it's not allowed anymore.
Well, it is, but not in some of the ways those guys were. But no, but
suicides.
Right.
No, like the runs, not people.
Right. But it was one of those where I react well to that. Like, I want somebody that's not going to dance around. They're like going to challenge me. And that's when I knew on call number 2 that we had the absolute right coach.
Yeah. Well, and that's the important thing too with this discovery process is, you are already on the right path with going forward with potentially interviewing other people to either be a coach or a mentor, or whatever you're an assistant, whatever you're looking to invest into your business. Right. And I think that's another huge thing that needs to be talked about as well. But you're not looking for someone to say, hey, I'm so happy you got 5 transactions closed this week. It needs to be in depth, push yourself to better yourself. And that all aligns with what you just said, Brad, because, if someone's here to pat you on the back, it's historically known that just doesn't work, right? Humans aren't motivated by, yes, that you feel better, but if you put your head down and you know that you have to get something done and someone is holding you accountable, at the end of the day, that's always going to benefit you in the long run.
Well, and it's funny too, because, there's a large coaching network in the state, or I guess in the country, whatever. And we did consider that a few years ago. We met the kind of head honcho, and we considered it. And one of the things
who's excellent, if we would have had him as a coach, and sure.
Yeah, sure. But I will say, in our interviews with the coaches, there was 2 different coaches that we interviewed with and talked with. That was one of the big things. It was all about numbers, right? Yeah. And Brad and I are just like that. I don't need help with that. Like we've built a good business in regards to clients and repeat clients and our sphere and whatnot. That's not what we need help with. Like, I don't need to sell 100 million personally, right? I'm okay with 25, 30, 35, whatever. I don't need to do that. No one needs to help me do that. So I think that's something that definitely in discerning, you just need to go, okay, is this about me selling more? Okay, well, then there's a certain kind of coach for that. Or is this about, like you said, PT, like really evolving your real estate career into a real estate business?
Yeah.
And I think you need to make sure then that it's somebody who's done that, not just the hype guy.
Yeah. Yeah. And like you mentioned earlier, I mean, everybody's got a different personality too, right? And I really thought that the reflection part of it, like in call 2, was what really made me know that we hired the right person, right? I mean, there were a lot of questions, and good questions, but it's just getting better and better every call, and you learn more and more, and you get to implement some of this. Now, sometimes we don't get all of our homework done, which, sorry, Eric.
I was just going to say, it was actually quite funny.
But they're great calls. I mean, anytime we have questions, I mean, he just lays it all out.
Our last call, I don't know if Dusty ever does this to you. So our last call, though, we didn't have our homework done. And Brett and I realized, a few hours beforehand, we didn't have our homework done. And not because we're being lazy. It's just,
by the way, do we have homework for tomorrow?
I know. I just was thinking about that. Oops. But we were thinking about that. And I mean, it's just literally, we've been just crazy busy. I mean, and not that that's an excuse, and because that's what I'm doing is making an excuse. I mean, we have to be disciplined to do it. We've invested this money in this, but it was so funny because Eric said, it's okay, guys. I mean, if you don't do your homework, I mean, then you still need me and I still have a paycheck. That's so, right. I mean, it's going to take us longer to get to where we need to go. And I'm like, he just made me feel not pretty again.
Yep. A lot of fire under you, but that's why he's there, right? I mean, it's just, it all falls into the bucket of, accountability.
Yeah.
And that's what you need. And what areas are you looking to be accountable in? I think it's also just kind of funny too, because the way that technology has evolved, I think that's really improved this space as well over the past couple of years. I mean, who would have thought 5 or 6 years ago, I guess, I mean, it actually would have been probably more like 10 years ago, but having the ability to hop on a fall, I'm lucky enough to have a meeting every week with Dusty. But just imagine doing that 10 years ago. I mean, that just probably wasn't a thing. So this space has evolved so much too recently.
Yeah, you would have had to be on the phone.
Yeah. And being on the phone doesn't really, I mean, it's not the same thing as seeing people's, and it's interesting too. And I would consider this if you're considering hiring a coach, and I never thought about this, but one of the things our coach said was like, hey, in addition to our calls, I'm available to you, you can text me and whatever. But he did say, he goes, but what I would prefer more so than just a text message is a video message, because I'm big on that. It's like, it allows me to see your, I mean, and it's true, because your body language, your facial expressions, it's different than just a text message, which the tone or can kind of get misinterpreted. So I think that's a big thing too, is how accessible is your coach and on what level they are. So that's how you should also determine that. But I want to go back to something you said, Brad, about, you said, and there's a lot of group think in our industry. And I definitely think there is. And I think that's something that I would just caution agents from getting into, because at the end of the day, it kind of goes back to this thing. There's a story that maybe I've told, maybe I haven't, about when you and I decided to go into business together, and I quit my salary job, and your dad and mom were like, oh my gosh, da 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 da. And I remember you coming to me and you're like, I don't know. They're like, I don't know if we should do this, like both of us commission based. And I remember saying to you, well, unless they're going to put, money in my checking account or my savings account, I appreciate them, but I don't really care. Right. And I think I would say that same thing in regards to, when you think that you kind of have it all figured out and you maybe don't need an outside thought process, right? Or an outside coach or someone else to help you to get to the next level. It's because unless the person that you're going to, they can be as successful as heck, But unless they're actually helping you get to the next level and they're holding you accountable, like you said, PT, like then it's just, I mean, you can be friends with anybody you want to, but as far as your real estate business, I think you really have to determine, are you helping me? If this is your goal, right?
Yeah.
Are you helping me? And if not, then you need to find, you can still be friends with that person and work with them side by side and whatnot, but you really need to find someone that's going to help you to be more successful in your real estate business. And like Eric said, not tell you you're pretty, right?
Yeah. And which is much easier these days than, like you said, 10 years ago, even, where you had better hope that you had a really good broker manager. I mean, that was the main trainer that you had, or if your company had a education department, I mean, that was a big thing, or travel around and go to events where you would learn. But the coaching thing so neat is that it's catered towards you yourself, right? And not just the general audience. And I was lucky. I mean, when I was younger, I had a lot of good mentors. I had my dad, of course, and then I had Scott Case, and then I had Jerry Rossi. All three of those kept telling me that I was going to be a really good realtor, but I didn't believe it myself that I was 22. I mean, I did down deep, but I think you can kind of vouch as well, really, PT, when you're so young, it's intimidating. You're like, gosh, I don't know whether I can ever do that. And then I had all these great mentors, and then I met Andrea, and she was like, why aren't you doing that? Right. So it's a combination of all of it. So that's like the old school of like how we used to do things. Was I was just lucky that I had really good mentors, but you have so much more of an opportunity now that you can literally go online and research which coach is going to be the best fit for the way that you do your business. Right. I mean, so it's just changed so much.
Well, and I think you have to know your why too, right? In order to hire a coach, or to know if you need to hire a coach, you have to know your why. Why are you doing this? Why do you want to, go a different direction or take something to the next level? Why do you want to do that? And if you know that, then it's like, okay, well, am I in a space, or am I surrounding myself with people or mentors or, teammates that can help me get there? Or do I need to look outside of this circle to do that? And there's nothing wrong with looking outside of that circle. It's actually, that's a smart thing to do, right? You have to, at the end of the day, take care of you, because you then can help other people when you're the best version of yourself.
Yeah. Well, and it's just normalized now. It's, it's not with how the world is evolving and the accessibility to be able to step out of the circle much more easier. It's just normalized, right? Yeah. But the why, that is like we have to just dive into that so much, because that was my first 2 weeks is why, and it's, it came back, and we were shifting and talking through it. And, it was always the generational continuing on the legacy. But it landed on me, and I always knew this, but I mean, it wasn't evident at the moment, but it was a community. I absolutely love where I live. And I wouldn't trade anything for it. And I want to help other people feel the way that I do about the community. So it's finding the why. And then also, that's why I'm a realtor, but then also, why am I looking for a coach? Well, I was in that entrepreneurial chase of just like, I wake up and then I go work out and I get a million texts in the morning, and I just attack the day that way. And so we had to restructure my day. And
you're living in chaos.
Exactly.
You're creating your chaos.
Exactly. Chaos coordinator. And so
you and Brad have that trait. You're good.
Exactly. And so but that's where we started. And so if there's, people are there to help you figure out your weaknesses and turn them into strengths, which is an amazing thing.
Yeah. And it's interesting hearing you say that too, because I do feel like that is something also that's a common theme right now for us in our why and what we're evolving into is, we had a call with our coach, and then after that was we listened to the podcast with Ed Milet, where he was talking about the QTR, and that's definitely for us. It goes back to, again, like we're at that point, like, okay, number one, what's important to us? Okay, well, we want to impact others' lives in a positive way. And that's both our community, and then it's also other agents. We feel like, we've done the thing. And so now God's blessed us with these gifts. And so part of our next phase is helping other people to get to that same place. But again, having the right person to get you on the right path to do that. And that's really, I mean, you can't do all those other things if you're just living in your, what is it, coordinated chaos?
Yeah. Well,
because you have to figure out how you can give yourself and your time to someone else.
You really do. And to be present too, right? Mm-hmm. And in this current world, you know, we all have cell phones and we're all guilty of it. But, you know, the more that I've listened to these podcasts, just to put that down and to be completely present, you do feel a lot better, and who you're with too. I mean, that tells them that they are important. And those of you that don't know what QTR is, quality time remaining. So here's an example. My dad's 83 years old, right? So rather than thinking, okay, well, I'm like going to see him the rest of my life, when you drop down and you really think about it, how many more times am I going to be able to see my dad? Is it going to be 25, 30 times? Because mostly you see somebody, you know, if you're lucky, once a month, once every other month. So when you reduce it down to that, and you're on your cell phone and you're doing all the rest of that, not a very good idea, right? I mean, so and that is the same thing with your business too, is that, yeah, I mean, I've been doing this for 25 years, which is a long time. How many more open houses am I really going to have? How many more clients am I going to be able to like help? I mean, you start to see the end of the road, and that restructures how you think about things.
Right. And again, so that goes back to kind of what this whole topic is about, is that was like discerning that and really thinking about that was why we knew, okay, we don't have the skill set or whatever, the brain, I don't know the right word, to get to that place that we know we need to go to next. And that's why we knew we needed to hire a coach, right? And that's what the purpose of our coach is. So it's not, you know, I think that's something that people really have to think about is, you know, okay, is there something that is different, that I want something different? Am I, you know, needing to grow in a certain way? And if so, then how can I get there?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's opening Pandora's box. I mean, you know, just being able to, the biggest thing for me is as I just mentioned it, there are so many different opportunities within this industry. We're starting to see it just blossom in front of us. I mean, you could be a hardcore, you know, seller and hit the sales, or you could be an attractor too. You know how, like, so just play to your skill set and find somebody that also has been successful in that skill set, and just watch yourself flourish.
It's always learn, right? I mean, regardless of what your strength is, there's somebody else out there that's kind of like you that you may want to be your role model, basically, to mirror. But the biggest mistake realtors make, and this goes into the coaching thing too, is that they really think that they've got it all. Like, I know how to do everything. I'm the greatest realtor ever. No one can really teach me anything. Once you start to think like that, then you're probably not going to move forward and probably backward. Now,
you're already behind. Yeah.
Here's a sports analogy, which I love these. So let's use an example. Probably the greatest golfer of our generation, Mr. Tiger Woods. Guess what? Tiger Woods had a coach. Right. And was his coach as good of a golfer as him? No, but he knew the swing in and out and knew Tiger's swing. Michael Jordan, you know, arguably the greatest basketball player of our lifetime, of history. He went to the next level when they hired Phil Jackson. Right. So, I mean, was Phil Jackson as good of a basketball player as Michael Jordan was? No, but he helped Michael Jordan out with the mental part of the game. So it's in any industry, any sport, the best players have coaches.
Well, and I think that goes back to, again, your why, right? And if you aren't hiring a coach, that's because I'm so big about this right now too. You can go through the motions with anything, right? Yeah. But you're going to constantly be searching for something else, the next bigger, better thing, right? You have to make sure that you know what your why is, so then your coach can help you to feel more fulfilled in your gifts in your business. That's really, at the end of the day, what your coach should do, is to help you to feel more fulfilled in what you're doing. And in turn, you're going to be more successful. I mean, obviously, in whatever it is you're trying to grow at.
Totally agree.
But I think we also need to just reel it back a little bit too, because, yes, this is, there are great opportunities out there for people to help guide you, but also at the end of the day, it's up to you.
Yeah.
They're gonna give you the ideas. I mean, what's the stat that everyone goes to a conference and you get all this great information and everyone's like, I'm going to do this. I mean, it's like what 5% of less than 5% of the people actually put into action what is given to you. So, that has to be an understanding as well, because we only can sit in front of a screen in front of our coach and he can tell us, this sounds like a great idea. He can answer your questions, but at the end of the day, you have to put it into action.
Yeah, there's no question about
100%.
it. So I would say, to really kind of wrap this up, that you all would recommend hiring a coach at some point in your career.
Yeah, I don't think you should just hire a coach to hire a coach.
Agreed.
I think that you have to, just because your friend Susie and Bobby and, Jimmy Joe decide to hire a coach doesn't necessarily mean it's time for you to hire a coach. I mean, do you feel like you're lacking something? Do you feel like you can't get to the next level or whatever it is that you're trying to learn? There's not anybody around you that can do that. Well, then, start exploring coaches, but don't just hire a coach to say I have a coach. I mean, especially if you're not going to go back to what you said, PT, if you're not going to put in the time and you're not going to hold yourself accountable, then you could have the best coach in the world, but nothing's going to change.
Exactly.
Agree.
Well, and it's a little bit of buyer beware too, right? I mean, be careful of the sticker price or the sticker items or whatever, the
shiny penny.
Exactly. So, just do your due diligence, interview, and you'll know when you find the right one.
Totally
That's
agree.
the biggest thing.
I agree. It'll click.
All right. Well, that's a wrap.
Peace.